And I certainly don't think there's anyone better that can lead this discussion. He doesn't need much of an introduction. You know, as a regular public thinker on numerous topics, including deep sustainability, business, economics, innovation, creativity and entrepreneurship, not only from a New Zealand context, but a global context. You know, his thinking on why we do business and how we evolve our business certainly challenges, inspires, and creates real space for transformational dialogue. So, me kore aki koe, he toku tohi a mātou, kia ora Rod, I welcome you to lead us forward.
Kia ora tātou, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us for this evening's discussion about this particular topic, about tackling polluting materials and building products on our journey to a zero carbon economy. And also greetings to people who are joining us via live stream, and thank you very much for being with us virtually, and I'll explain in due course how you'll be able to get questions to us through Slido, and I'll come to that in a few moments. It is indeed, as Joe said, quite an extraordinary week around the world, being World Green Building Week. And needless to say, it was obviously perfectly timed for the UN's Climate Summit, which started yesterday in New York. And already very memorable moments from that. Our Prime Minister did a fine job of laying out New Zealand's ambitions, where we have some strengths on these issues and where we have some needs. And the overwhelming appeal she made that we need to be able to share those ideas and trade products and technologies and the like around the world to make that happen. But of course, probably most memorable of all was the wonderful look that Greta Thunberg gave Donald Trump as he walked by, which I think is, should be wonderfully etched in all our minds. That he was there not to talk about climate, but to address a freedom of religion event that he had asked for and called for, is a rather difficult thing for me to try to unpack, and I won't even try. Our great opportunity, though, here in New Zealand is on our journey to a zero carbon economy over these few decades ahead to make substantial improvements and changes environmentally, economically, socially, and reinforce so many of our cultural values in all of this. And I just wanted to give particular thanks and pay tribute to for the New Zealand Green Building Council for its work over the years, but particularly for the roadmap just released yesterday. And for designing a whole week of events around the country, of which the panel discussion last night in Wellington, tonight here in Auckland, and tomorrow night in Christchurch are part of that. Last night we had a very good discussion about how to meet the peak demand for electricity through very big efficiency gains, but also making sure we do that through renewables as well. Our panelists there were very clear that there is a daunting series of interlocking issues there, whether from competing incentives, i.e. the generators love peak demand because that's when they make their big profits, but the lines company hate it because that's when they have to have the maximum investment to meet that peak demand. So at the moment we're really quite at sea about how we bring those disparate and competing parts of the electricity supply and demand picture together. But out of it there was some very thoughtful, very encouraging contributions from the panelists. All that was recorded, so once that's available on the Building Council's website, I would encourage you to look at it. Now, in terms of tonight, a very simple format. I'm about to welcome up four terrific panelists, giving us four very different, but again, very complementary perspectives on the complicated issue we're discussing. Then, after they have presented for 5 minutes each, we will get into a discussion. Now, because of the size of the sellout audience here, we won't have a chance to get microphones around to people who have got questions. So what we're going to do is to use entirely Slido. So if you get out your phones and go to slido.com, very simple process, you will see a logins required to get you to the right meeting. And so for this one, it's hashtag building life with a capital B and a capital L. Then Joe and Lena will be likely moderating the questions coming in to sort of arrange them in a useful order for us up here to work our way through. But of course, please do be looking at the questions as they're coming through. They might spark a question, an additional question you might want to ask. But crucially, you can also upvote questions. And so that's a very big help to me to try to choose the questions which are most relevant to you to put to our panelists. I won't go through those questions literally from the most popular on down. I will move around a bit, and I'll also be throwing in a few of my own questions. And I know we won't have a chance to deal with all the questions that come through, but we have a hope that we can collect all of those questions and provide answers for some, or a good many of them, again after the event. And then after all of that, I will simply summarize and thank everyone and close the event. And then at 7 o'clock, I'll close this speaking part of the event, because then will be more time for drinks and networking afterwards. Just a little bit more housekeeping. I've got some additional thank yous in addition to all the sponsors that you see coming through on the screen, particularly Auckland Council, our Auckland Conversations partner, South Base Construction and Design partner, Resine, and all Auckland Conversation Programme supporters. And I'm sure that's a large factor in the turnout tonight. We'd also just like to encourage you to believe in democracy and act on democracy. And of course, the local election voting is now open for postal ballots and closing on the 12th of October. And we'd like to encourage you to take part in that. Voting's very quick and easy. Well, at least until you get to the health board. That's a bit of a mind bender. Just rank them in your order of preference. It's as simple as that. So please do engage, because the quality of our local politics, our local government, is crucial to this. I would just add my own personal note to this. I'm a great fan of the work that Generation Zero does in many respects, but particularly in the interviews it does with candidates and their ratings of them, as they have done in past elections too. So you'll find that a useful guide. One last thank you. I turned up on my bike just as I thought it was about to rain, and I was very delighted to see this canopy being put up outside by Bike Auckland. Hands up people who availed themselves of the valet bike parking. Yeah, fantastic, yeah. Well, so thank you to Bike Auckland, in particular Fiona and Sean out there for that. A few health and safety things. Should there be the need for an evacuation, there will be an alarm sounded, so please just follow the instructions of the venue staff out through those exits at the back and assemble out in Aotea Square. Smoking, this is of course a non-smoking venue. If you need to smoke, please do that outside, but not near the bicycles. Sorry, it's strange juxtaposition. Bathrooms are located in the foyer by the internal staircase, and should anyone need first aid, there are first aid assistants amongst the venue staff.